The cold didn't knock in wartime Europe. It kicked the door down. Unheated rooms, frost on the inside of windows, breath hanging in the air like smoke. And yet millions of people still slept, still survived the night. Not because they had heaters, not because they had electric blankets, but because they understood something, that modern living has almost erased from memory. Heat is easier to trap than it is to make. And the old bed insulation layout was a quiet masterpiece at doing exactly that. Today, on Life in Wartime WWII, we're pulling back the blankets on a system that worked even when rooms had no fire, no power, and absolutely no mercy from winter. This wasn't comfort. This was survival engineering, and it started from the ground up. Most people think warmth comes from what you throw on top of yourself. Wartime households knew better. They treated the bed like a shelter, not just furniture. Because, honestly, the biggest enemy wasn't cold air brushing your face. It was heat bleeding away from your body into everything touching it. Floors were often bare boards or thin stone, Both stole heat relentlessly. So the first rule was elevation and insulation underneath. Beds were raised higher than we keep them today, not for style, but to lift the sleeper out of the coldest air layer. Under the mattress went straw-filled ticks, wool pads, folded blankets, even old coats. Anything that could trap dead air. Dead air was gold, really. It slowed heat loss. It created a thermal buffer between the body and the frozen world below. In some wartime homes, people stacked layers under the mattress until the bed felt almost spongy. Not luxury, strategy. Because once the cold got into your back and hips, sleep was over. And exhaustion in winter could be fatal. Now, here's the part most modern recreations tend to miss. The old bed insulation layout wasn't just, vertical. It was actually three-dimensional. See, cold air moves. It spills, it creeps, and it just flows right over the edges of a mattress. Wartime sleepers, well, they countered that by insulating the sides of the bed just as carefully as the top. Heavy blankets were draped down the edges, sometimes even tucked between the mattress and the frame. In poorer homes, folks used sacks, rugs, and even layered newspaper undercloth to build these soft walls. This all created what we'd now call a microclimate, a little pocket of air that your body could slowly warm and then keep. Instead of heating a whole room, you only had to heat a bubble, really. In some regions during the war, people went further. They pushed beds against walls and, hung thick fabric from pegs or strings to form a partial enclosure. Not a tent, not a fort. More like a thermal curtain, really. It cut drafts. It trapped warmth. It turned a freezing room into a survivable sleep zone. Another forgotten principle of the old layout was pressure. Heavy coverings were prized, not just for insulation, but because they sealed the system. Light blankets lift. They let warm air escape. Heavier quilts, layered wool, and dense spreads pressed down around the body, reducing air exchange. That meant the warmth your body produced stayed where it was useful. Wartime families often layered 3, 4, sometimes even 5 coverings. Not all thick, mind you. Some were thin but tightly woven, placed above and below the heavier layers. This reduced convection, which is the silent current that steals heat without you even feeling it happen. People even slept in their daytime clothes, not because the clothes were warm by themselves, but because they filled gaps. Sleeves, collars, waistlines, every little seal reduced heat loss. The old bed insulation layout was essentially clothing, mattress and covers working as one continuous thermal system. Here's a fact that sounds small but made a massive difference. Many wartime households pre-warmed the bed before sleep. Not with electricity, though, with simple heat storage. Hot bricks from a stove, bottles filled with heated water, wrapped in cloth and placed near the feet or core before anyone climbed in. These weren't just for comfort, you know. They raised the initial temperature of the bed's air pocket. That meant your body didn't have to spend its own energy fighting the first brutal minutes of cold. Once inside, the heavy insulation trapped that starter heat. By morning, the bricks were cold, but the bed environment was still far warmer than the room. This method reduced nighttime calorie burn, which honestly mattered when food was rationed and bodies were already under strain. In survival terms, this was thermal budgeting. Spend a little heat early, save a lot over 8 hours. During WWII, entire families often slept in one room, not only because of space, but because bodies are heaters. 2 people under one insulation system don't just double warmth, they multiply it. Shared air warms faster. Shared covers seal better. Beds were sometimes pushed together and treated as one large sleeping platform. Insulation was layered across the whole surface, you know. Gaps were filled and drafts blocked. The goal wasn't privacy, not at all. It was efficiency. Even when people slept alone, they positioned beds away from windows and exterior doors, and closer to interior walls where temperatures were more stable. The old bed insulation layout always respected airflow and heat loss paths. They didn't know the physics formulas, but they knew the results. Today we heat rooms, not beds. We pay to warm empty corners, and we burn energy to fight ceilings. Wartime households aimed straight at the target, the human body. The old bed insulation layout worked because it focused on 3 things: trapping air, blocking movement, reducing contact with cold mass. Those principles haven't aged. They've just been hidden by convenience. If power went out tonight, if heating vanished, most modern homes would feel unbearable within hours. But this forgotten system could still work tomorrow, exactly as it did 80 years ago. And here's the twist. Even with heating, versions of this layout can, radically improve sleep warmth, reduce energy use, and provide a safety buffer during outages. A well-insulated bed doesn't replace heat, it multiplies it. It's tempting to call these methods crude. They weren't. They were refined by necessity. Every layer had a role. Every placement had a reason. People adjusted setups weekly based on weather. They repaired insulation like clothing. They treated the bed as the front line of winter survival. This wasn't nostalgia. It was applied science under pressure, and that's what makes it powerful, really. These weren't theories. These were nights lived through bombing seasons, fuel shortages, and brutal winters. The old bed insulation layout didn't just keep people comfortable, it kept them alive. Cold has always been one of war's quietest weapons, but so has knowledge, and tonight you just reclaimed a piece of it. If you value these forgotten survival systems, if you want more real wartime wisdom pulled straight from history's hard lessons, make sure you subscribe to Life in Wartime. Share this with someone who loves hidden history. And as always, stay curious, stay prepared, and we'll see you in the next one.